is we're going to change it around a little bit now that we've got the perfect weather. So once I'm finished talking, we'll hand it over to Ken and we'll listen to his landholder story. And then we'll be going for a walk out with Gwyn in the field, and then followed by a little presentation by Gwyn back in here. And then we'll have a break at around 11 o'clock before we get into Mark Sugar's presentation. So I think that's it from me. Without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Ken.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Longmore Mangoes. I hope you all have a good day here today. This is our little humpy and where we do things. About in 95, I bought this block here, which was all full of cane, to retire on and hopefully have a much easier life, which is, I fooled myself there for the start. We removed the cane, we fenced it, and we did what most people did at the time, divided into 4 paddocks and put cattle in there. We seeded it, and little did I know a lot about it all at the time, but we ended up with all this thatch grass and banner oats and everything like that, up to about 8 foot high. The cows ate all the good grasses we'd planted. And we've been fighting the other stuff ever since. Mary and I moved here, about 10 years ago. And we started changing things then. We looked at some things that, different ways of farming and different things that could happen. We decided after looking at one of them Joe Sullivan things here, we'd divide this first paddock into smaller paddocks and shift our cows daily. I was as eager as that after talking to him up in Mareeba, and I thought, come back and tried it. Seen the difference it made, the way the cattle, you got more time out of your paddocks, rested. We decided we'd do more of it, and we made our paddocks 30 metres wide. So all these paddocks are 30 metres wide. And we put electric fences across them and shift them daily or every 2 days or whatever's required. That has worked well and lifted productivity and our organic matter in the soils and brought back some of the grasses. Other things that we have done is we've looked at fermenting our own fertilisers, our fish, kelp, bones, putting out liquid humus and zinc and boron. We ferment them round the back there, there's plenty of them, and then we filter them, and they're in these 5 tanks here, of which we normally use to put 20 litres, 30 litres of that, in that 500 litre tank there, and boom, spray it out over the places. We've found that made a difference and increased our microbes over 3-fold, which has all been tested through MicroWise down in University of Adelaide to this stage that we're on the 100% level that they had to on their scales and were higher than that. We learned a lot about microbes at the time and what affects them and what doesn't affect them, especially Cyclone Debbie and how it affected them in a bad way here and gave us about 5 months' work we didn't need. The other thing we've been trying now is multi-species in our paddocks. We signed this seeder and built and put out here and tried it. And we've had numerous failures starting on that. Basically, we've planted things and it's come up this high, and then we've had 800 mils of rain on 3 occasions, which just turns everything yellow and goes out. We looked at it and we thought we're going to have to get irrigation, we're going to have to do a few things, which we've worked towards and started this year, and we've had better results this year with some of that coming through. That's in our pastures and paddocks out there, and we're increasing more grasses and the diversity of things that are there. With our mangoes, we virtually don't use any chemical fertilisers at all, just what we do. A little bit of fungicide and a little bit of potassium sulfate, which we put on foliar. Apart from that, we have pretty good mangoes. Where a lot of the industry is struggling to get 12 and 13 bricks levels. We have 17 and above, which is pretty good. We're very happy with that. We virtually haven't. We put in one insecticide out last season, the first one for 4 years, which is almost unheard of in the mango industry. And yeah, we've had really good success at most of the things we've applied in there. Still need to do more on my paddocks, and I'm learning a lot from these gentlemen that are here today on our soil further down. And I've got heaps of questions for them later. And that's about what we've been doing here. Has anyone got any questions or anything like that? The mangoes went in 96. It was started when we first started putting mangoes in. We've since now got jackfruit and soursops down here too, which you know, so our agents in Melbourne have asked us to look into a bit. So we're still learning to handle them, getting them down there, and especially the soursops in one piece. And it's our first sort of crop of jackfruit on now, but you know, next year they'll be a lot heavier, you know. But we're at that stage of us still getting through and learning a lot about them as well. Not often enough. Try and do it a couple of times a year. I'd like to do it 4, but you know, we've been pretty busy here. Like earlier this year, we used to get our trees pruned yearly down by some people. They sold their machines, and we couldn't get anyone with pruners to come from up on the tablelands past Bowen, and people from Bundaberg wouldn't go. It was rocky. But a bloke bought one in Yeppoon last year, and he just hasn't stopped using it since full time, just in the local areas here in Yeppoon and Rocky, which has been great, because Neil and I spent 4 months doing the sides, and he come along and did all the tops, took 4 metres off the top of them in a day, you know, which would have been another 4 months for us. Yeah, just leaves a big mess for you to clean up afterwards, but no, that's what we find there. We put under the trees a lot more regular than that. Yeah, and we've started building a little trailer that's down here now, or we built it, of which goes from one through the trees right from side to side in the one spray now. And we've got some different ones to put it out at a higher volume so we can do it quicker now. 1,000 litre pod with a little pump on it and recirculating it and spreading it out, and we're finding that's good. And in these 30 metre paddocks, it's 2 up, 2 down, you've done the whole paddock. And you can put 1,000 litres in that, and it takes you more time to fill it up than what it does to do the paddocks, you know. Yeah, with the irrigation we've got now, especially when we're doing these multi-species, we're looking at fertigating it through the water at the time. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken and Mary, and thank you so much for hosting us here today. It's a beautiful spot. I love coming out here because you've got the ocean right there as well. So I'll hand it over to Gwyn now.
How you going, everyone? This one or that one?
You can just talk through that.
Great, okay. Just to start off, please, can people help me out? Who didn't go to the conference, has come just to the field day? Just throw your hands up. Okay, a couple of you. Is there any specific questions you wanted me to answer before we kicked off? No? Open books? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out and have a look at the patterns, in particular with the vegetation that's there and with the weeds that are there. And then what we're going to come in, and I've got a group of plants here. The biodiversity on this place is amazing, and thank you for letting us come. Then we're going to make a successional list of plants through here, so you've got some visual idea of what successional order comes through. And also, when we finish that, what I'd like you to do is think a little bit about, having looked at that successional list down there, whereabouts are you in your landscape in that list. You may find on some areas, you may think you've got a lot of poorer plants. You may think you're going to have a lot of better quality plants. So in that successional order, think a little bit about where you're coming from. So what we're going to do, and we're going to walk out through there in a group. Just remember, when you're looking in this property, you've actually got your mangoes, then you've got your interrow, and you've got what's growing underneath your mangoes as well. So to some degree, if you're thinking from a pastoral perspective, you're almost thinking like what's happening in the interrow. And also what we'll want you to see is where, and Ken's kindly left us some weeds to look at, is what are the patterns, and ask yourself a simple question, why are those plants growing there? So part of the issue is going to be that you're going to see grasses, then you're going to see other tap-rooted plants. Ask yourself, why is the grass growing there, and why are other plants growing there? Now, if herbicides are used, they can create straight borders, but you're going to find, as you start looking through the landscapes, different plant communities actually mix together. So what I'm planning to do is, we've got a good sized group. I'm going to try and get in front of you, and then we're going to head down there. If we can, what I want to try and do is see if we can go in a bit of a long line and a bit of a sort of horseshoe and try and get me in the middle, because otherwise it gets a little bit cramped, if that's okay. All right, so I'm going to head down there. If you can follow me, and yeah, put your sunscreen hats and all that on, that'd be great.
Sunscreen's just up here, everyone.
Yep. I'm just going to this now.
Yeah, look, that one's for camera, that one is for was for people. So.
I can raise my voice, that's no problem. Yeah. You right, you lot? What I'm going to try and do is, can people create a string along here? So to get you organised. Like herding cows, cats. I know. Can you head that way a bit and we'll get a bit of a long string? What we're trying to do is just get a bit of a long string of people along. Back, 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 back. So I'm trying to keep people up the hill, mate.
Okay.
You got a few stragglers? Yep. Okay, so what we're doing, you right? No. You right, guys? Yep. So what I want you to think about is, we got a line of people looking along. Look down and look around where you are. How many plant species are you looking at in and around your feet, roughly? 4 or 5? Okay. When you look at that, one thing of the take-home message is, most of the times you tend to think what's growing on top. I'm going to rephrase the question. When you look at the plant species that you're standing on and around, think about what root systems are underneath them. Okay, so have a look around and tell me, are you looking at one sort of root system, but all the same plant, or you're looking at different root systems?
These would all be similar, wouldn't they?
They should be, yeah. But what I'm trying to get you to think about is, when you move from here and then we start looking down to where your weeds are there, what's going to be the big change between here and there from the plant root systems?
Taproot.
Most of those down there are going to be taproots. Now what tends to happen is that if you're constantly mowing something, the taprooted plants don't tend to be hanging around. You've got the more fibrous root systems. Are there any legumes around here? Okay, a couple in here as well. So think about this one. You've got a nitrogen cycle. So if this is sort of neutral and the legumes and the grasses are feeling comfortable working with one another, if you get a lot of wet weather, the nitrate tends to leach out, and then often the legumes will come in and fill that gap. Then what happens if it comes in really dry, the nitrate levels start to build up again, and then what comes in? Your grasses. So even within that big cycle, you're actually going to see that these little plants here are actually trying to build the nitrogen, and literally you've got the grasses around trying to take it away. So when you're thinking about plant communities, try and think about the fact that they are dynamic, but they are a community as such. You've got one plant that's actually doing one job and one role, and another plant's doing another role. What I want you to do is we'll probably come down and try string out a little bit along. We'll take this one. So just string down this way, please, if you come with me. Yep. As you're coming down, we're going to come down this line. As you're coming down, you've got Fleabane there. Right. What do we got here? Legume? Yep. Can people string this way if we can? Sorry. Excellent. We're trying to get them to string. Guys, just listen to what I'm going to try and do. I'm trying and get you to spin around that way, so can people come this way, and we're trying to get you long and skinny. I can go, Mike, yep.
Just so people at the back.
Yep, sorry. Is that better? Good. Okay, so what we're doing here is that this is literally like an interrow. How many plant species do we actually see in this interrow? 5, probably max. Yep. Okay, if you start now looking in underneath the trees, what's the common plant there? Right, so common peg. What's the root system of the cobbler's peg?
Taproot.
Okay, so ask yourself a question. Why is a taprooted plant growing there, but we don't seem to have them out here?
Poisoned under there.
Right, so what's happened when you take a herbicide out and you actually clean up the places people use the term? What the taprooted plant is trying to do is actually re-establish itself. And when I talk about the successional order, the taprooted plants are normally trying to go and get a deep root system to put new nutrient back on the top. Now, how come we've got cobbler's peg and then further up there we've got a legume? Why is the legume doing fairly well at the top?
The runoff from the hill.
So it's got more nutrient coming down. So the legume, as a general comment, basically is higher up the successional order. So it's actually gaining the nutrients, I'm thinking, from up there, and that's why that one's doing exceptionally well. If you start to look into your interrows in here, what other plants are around there? You've got cobbler's peg, which is fairly common. Yep, what else have we got? Got vines. Fleabane. How many people have got fleabane? Or should I say, how many people haven't got fleabane? Okay, fleabane is a very tough plant to deal with. Again, it's got that big tap root system on it. I don't know, you may be able to pick this up in the camera, but it's how it's got that really fine sort of hairs on it. Yeah. What's the significance of a plant having fine hairs on it? Thank you. That's a great one.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, you're spot on, but tell me why.
Because of the dryness.
Yeah, so in the you've got cactus have got thorns on them. Have you thought that this is this?
The water.
Sorry?
Water. It has more access to water.
Yep.
Roots on it.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about the top. It's the surface area.
Okay.
So this leaf here is a single surface area. But if actually it's got like little hairs on it, but on the actual stem itself here, there's literally, I'm going to call it hundreds, could be more than that, but there's literally hundreds of these fine hairs, and that's what's absorbing the moisture. And we talked about yesterday about the small water cycle. So literally this plant has got the ability, when there's enough moisture in the air, that the moisture is actually going to catch on there and actually start draining down into its taproot system. So this plant is like a little ecosystem in its own right. Now, it's very, very woody. Now, as a general language, and I'll ask this broad question, it depends which state I'm in, I get the different answers. Have you noticed along the side of the roads that you can see where they're sprayed by the what? Plants that are there. What is the most common weed that's growing by the side of the road?
It's Parramatta grass.
Parramatta grass, yep. How often have you seen a herbicide being used and you actually see Fleabane right along where it's been used? Is that common or not? Okay. So what is happening is once we actually use a herbicide, this plant is extremely aggressive, if you want to use general language, and this one's probably one of the harder ones to kill. So when we talked about yesterday saying, okay, if you're going to take out plant A, what happens if plant B is Fleabane? You're dealing with some bigger challenges. Now, if you look around here, what do we call this one? So can you hold that one? Now, form and function, what's different to this grass to what the grass is, which is more of a clumping grass? What's it doing? Excellent.
Expanding the
Sorry?
surface area as well. Hey?
It's expanding the surface area, and what it's doing, it's taking nutrient from here, and then it's taking it what? Out? What's the difference between this and a vine? Yeah. But is it doing the same? Yeah, it's a general language. It's still taking the nutrients out. So remember how I had the glass, and I said we had a glass, and then we took the water out of it, and it became highly concentrated. We've got those nitrate weeds. This is the same sort of form and function. Now, if you put stock into here, what's going to happen to this line? They eat it, they trample it as well. So when you start thinking about plants, that this one here, sorry, this one, is very much a mineral miner. This one here is very much trying to spread it out. So the legume itself, it's trying to build up the fertility. Now, part of the challenge I've got, I'm just going to put this one on the ground, is that you can have some of these, I'll call the term general grasses, then you can have a legume, and then you can move to better quality grasses. What would you describe as better quality grasses? That one? Okay, now, here's my problem. If you're in poor quality ground, you may say that's a good plant. If you're in better quality ground, people may say, no, that's my poorest plant. So it depends in that succession, if this is your successional order, it depends on where you are as to what you call is good or bad. So if you're sitting up here, people turn around and say, that stuff's what? Rubbish.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get that one as your best plant you can. Okay? That's why I get myself in trouble, because if I say that's good or bad, there's a 50% chance I'm going to get it what? Wrong. And also, that's why I play dumb on saying plants, because, and I got caught out today, and thank you to Ken. Ken said wireweed, and I'm looking everywhere for this wireweed, right? Ken's wireweed and my wireweed are completely different. So if we think about the form and function of the plant, I'm not so much interested in the name of the plant, I'm interested in what it's doing and why it's doing it. That makes sort of sense? Now, bit of homework. Can you remember how we had the 16 list of plants? Yeah, somewhere. Okay. What sort of categories do you think are sitting in and around here? What's this one doing?
That's mineralising.
Like the drill.
It's drilling. How deep does it go? Roughly. Yep. Okay. And that's the sort of major taproot. So this is like your jackhammer. It's not a drilling rig. It's not going down this deep. But this one's trying to go down. The other thing too with these type of plants is when this one falls over, because it's got a thick stem, how long does it take to break down? A long time. So this one, it's bringing the mineral up, it's laying it down, and it's staying there for a relatively long period of time to extend the amount of ground cover for as long as it can. Now take that same concept when you think about grasses, is that if this grass here was highly palatable and broke down very rapidly, the period of cover would be quite short. If I've got a grass here which is very high in silica, or tell me some of your really tough grasses, which is called what? Giant's rat's tail and all sorts of stuff. Yep. Parramatta grass. Parramatta grass is high in silica. You get your whippersnipper on that one and you go, nyeh. That's the first time I met Parramatta grass. That one, when it falls on the ground, how long does it take to break down? Yep, so the Parramatta grass with its high silica content is designing, from nature's perspective, to protect that area for as long as you can. So start thinking, remember we said there's two opposites. Can you hold that one? You've got your productive plant, hang on, I've stuffed up, sorry. You've got your productive plants up here, general language, and then you've got your protective plants here. These protective plants, what tends to happen is you have your thorns and your prickles, right, which is like physical extrusions. Then when it gets worse, you tend to go the defensive mechanisms more, the defensive external mechanisms traits back off, and you move to just coarse material. And then you can also have like reeds. Remember how I said if an ant was coming up to a rush or something like that, it's like a fortress. So these don't have the prickles, they're just trying to protect that tiny bit of ground that they're actually sitting on. And what happens is that when these decompose, it takes a long time. Now if we come up to this one here, oh, this is perfect. Hold that. So this is your successional order, sort of kind of like it coming up here. It peaks. Can you remember that graph that went up and over? That's when your nitrate weeds come in, and basically your nitrate weeds are dealing with excess fertility. How quickly do the nitrate weeds decompose? How quickly do these decompose? Okay, so these have come in, it's taking up the nitrate rapidly, and by taking up the nitrate rapidly and then decomposing, what's going to happen, it recycles it really quickly. So these are very quick recycling things. That's just a passing shower, isn't it? Yeah, it's not a problem.
If we take out the plants on this part of the plant succession, are these ones going up and taking the place, or these ones coming down and taking that?
Come here and hold that one for me. Great question. Okay. You can't drink on the job, mate.
Plant wants a bit of water.
Ben, okay, so we've got it right? Okay. So, no, it's like a bend there. No, you stay still. You bend. Right. Down a bit. Up a bit, no. Now, the question was asked, when you're looking at this successional order, just up a bit, sorry. What you're trying to do... Wait, back again. Where's the mic? Sorry.
Where's the mic? Where's the speaker?
What you're trying to do is you're trying to say to yourself, right guys, this here is poorer and this one's better. This one dies off, these increase, right? And it's like a crank, sort of clonk, 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 clonk. And it comes up here. You could have really good soil here and you go to nitrate weeds. What just happened? Tell me. I'll put it on the slide. Compaction. As Simon said, and thank you the other day, great heap of rain and it goes from aerobic to anaerobic, and all of a sudden you're dealing with these plants with nitrate weeds coming in. Or you could come along so far and have a period of drought, the biology slows down, the organic matter keeps decomposing, this one takes off. So what I want you to do is turn away from me, whichever way it is, have a look at your interrows and start counting how many, thanks guys, start counting how many plants you can actually see in that interrow, please. So, just to see.
Spray those weeds, like the ones in the middle. Then what happens?
Often, you actually drop backwards. So folks, have a look at your plants. Now there's two parts to your plants. I want you to count how many numbers we got. And then I want you to ask yourself a simple question. How many's got a taproot and how many hasn't? Beautiful. And legume, nodules, nodules.
Crazy bane. The other thing you're finding here, with climate change and the difference in interrows, is that the creatures are taking over. And
Excellent.
And during the wet season, these things choke these things out.
I'll get you to talk on that one when we get to the shed.
When it dries out,
Beautiful.
they come back, and that's...
Is that a native or a...
Now, what do you call that one?
Cytochusis?
No,
Cytochusis?
No, that's not cytochusis.
Isn't it?
No.
That is cytochusis.
Is it?
Yeah.
Small one.
You can see the nodules on that one.
That's bellyache
Different
bush.
variety.
It'll...
Yeah, it's different to what we have.
All right, I better get my group organised.
Talk to Mary.
How are we
She
going
knows
for
more about
time?
words than me.
that's... If you
10
got
minutes.
bellyache...
Okay, folks, how many plants did you come up
I've
with?
never tried it.
5. How many had taproots?
3.
So the majority of plants, as a general comment, in the underneath the trees had the taproots. What's their role?
This one,
Recycle. Oops, sorry.
some little nodules fixing.
Yes. We have some more too. So, just think about it this way. There's 2 forms of plant root systems. Hey guys, you ready? Now, there's what we call the Y root. The Y root basically goes along and it splits in half. Once it splits in half, then it splits again and again and again. It's the fibrous root system. The other one basically is the taproot going straight down. Now what you've got to think about is that when the plant puts so much energy into a big taproot and it's going down deep, why is it doing that? It's because invariably up top is not doing so well. So these Y root systems, these fibrous ones, can be sitting fairly shallowly in the soil, and what they'll actually do, if this is a bit of cow poo, they will actually split and split and split and then start to get themselves around that. But if a taproot's here, what can it do? It literally can't access it. So as a general comment, these are the more fertilely related plant root systems. Now, if you're in a degraded soil, once these plants start coming off, these plants start to dominate. So you've got a lot of topsoil, and you've got like that depth of topsoil, you get a great heap of erosion and that disappears. What comes up? Okay, so when you're reading the landscape, if you start, I'll strip the nodules off this one, sorry. If you say this is like the Fleabane situation, if you're reading the landscape and you're seeing more taprooted coming in, it's telling you you're going what? Backward? Then one from a successional point of view, once you start coming up into the grasses, there's better quality grasses. So what I'm trying to get you to think about is you've got like the rock and the moss, then you tend to get those herbs and forbs. Then what you're trying to do is to get these bigger taprooted plants coming in. The big jump is when the nitrogen legumes start coming in, particularly in your like your medics. Then you have your better quality grasses and mixed plants. Then you often have your poor quality medics here, your better quality medics. What would you call the best quality medic around here? What's your best legume?
Joint bench.
Okay. What, any others? Right. It depends, but my problem is this. Hear my language and I may be having trouble trying to explain myself. You've got low fertility legumes. When I talk about high fertility legumes, and you don't tell me that there's many here, where does that tell me you are in the successional order? You're here, not what? Up there. When I said to you, what's your better quality grasses, you're a little bit what? Vague?
Well, this is a tropical system, remember, as opposed to a temperate system that
Yep.
we're more used to. So things like medics aren't really a thing here.
No, but I'm using...
In the winter time, but they're not here normally.
I'm using the term emetic as an example of a lesser quality legume.
Centros and glycines and all those.
Those smaller ones.
Ah, they're big ones that climb up over trees.
Okay, so
They're real, in really healthy sort.
so the higher fertility plants have those bigger legumes.
Yep.
There's also those smaller legumes down here in the successional order. So why I'm saying that is actually it's going through cycles, and you've got to think to yourself, where are you in that cycle? And sometimes when you put in like a multi-crop, help me Simon,
Just a multi-species cover crop.
a multi-species cover crop.
Swallows and that are
Yep.
the lower ones here, and you have centros.
Is that raising the successional order up?
Yep.
And then it starts to create its own microclimate, and that's when these plants start to get to the next level. So what you're...
And that'll be the one when it's really good fertile country.
Yep.
And it'll climb up and kill trees, whatever.
So those high fertility plants are actually trying to cover that ground as quick as you can.
Yep.
So what we're going to do is we're going to head up
The grass, yeah.
and we're going to have a look at making a successional order. So I'll just tell you what we're going to be doing. I'm going to hopefully give you all a plant. Now the plant I give you may not represent your characteristics, so sometimes if I give somebody a prickle or thorn or whatever, it's not personal, okay? So when I get up there, then what we're going to do is I want you to have a look at your plant that I give you, and what I'd like you to think about is what's its form and function, and 50% of the plant root system is what?
Below the ground.
Underground. You may have a plant that you're hanging on to which is only the top, but you actually got to start thinking about what's growing underground as well. Then we're going to have this mad bit of confusion, and we're going to try and see if we can get a successional order going from the low fertility up through to your higher fertility, and see what cycles we go through. We'll head up while we're still dry.
Thanks, mate.